Hi there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Automotive Talent Show podcast, the podcast where we get to know and gain insights from leaders within the automotive industry. My guest this week, I first met along with his much better half back in 2014 over a coffee. Since then, he's made a strong impression in his new homeland of Australia. Welcome to the podcast, Petrus van der Walt. How are you, my friend?
Good, and you, Cameron?
I'm going very well, mate.
Thanks for the introduction. Been a long time, eh?
Been a long time. It's been a good time. And, just goes to show, as we were saying before we press the record button here, the value of relationships in our industry, isn't it? It's the foundation that everything is built on.
Definitely.
Yeah. And people might be able to tell a little bit by your accent about maybe where you called home before making Australia your home. So give us a little bit of a high level overview of the Petrus van der Walt story. Where does that all start, and how did you get here? What are you doing now, of course?
Well, I work at Tynan Motors here in Sydney in Australia, in Sutherland. I'm the group COO. Been here for just over 3 years now. My automotive career started in a little town called Port Elizabeth in South Africa, where I started off as a parts manager. I became a service manager. Then I worked at Toyota regional office for a few years as an after-sales manager. Then became a sales manager. Then went up to general sales manager, dealer principal. And then about 6 years ago, I joined the IT company, decided to do something different, which was more an international type of role because I wanted some more exposure on international automotive industry. I was there for 3 years, and on one of the trips that I was there, I did some business with Australia. And yeah, when I landed, it was true love, and it was just where I had to be. And that's when I got in touch with you a few years back. And here I am, had a goal, had a dream, and just stayed focused on getting into Australia. I did a short little stint as a first role here as an auditor for Audi Australia. So the idea was to get a national outlook on the network in Australia, how the dynamics work of all the dealerships and the groups and that. So I did that role for a year. And now I'm at Tynan's with 15 different franchises. Back in retail where I feel the most comfortable, and I must say it's been a challenging time, and this last 6 months have probably really got us going and tested our stamina and strength through the whole process. And that's where I am.
Yeah, it's been a little bit happening in the last few months, as we've said, mate. It's been a very interesting time, I think, to be alive in any industry, let alone the automotive industry. It's been such an evolving challenge, hasn't it? It's evolved. It's been the highest of highs. It's probably also been the lowest of lows in many ways. As we were saying before we hit the record button, back at the start of the challenge, there was a lot of businesses that were banking on being in a shutdown phase, being closed and planning on how they get through the other side of that, where I think fortunately we haven't had to endure that kind of level of challenge. We've been able to grind our way through it.
Yeah, I think the most important thing for our success, we've done really well through all this, was as soon as we knew the crisis had happened, was to be decisive, make a plan, and implement the plan immediately. We just knew we had to make a change straight away. Some people we saw sitting on the fence took a month or two before they put their plans in. Me and our CEO worked really well together. The first day we heard, here's a big challenge coming, we just pulled out our maps, put them all on the boardroom table, our plans, who the staff are, what we're going to do. And, for me, the main thing was always acting very quickly to get this process and get us back on our feet and survive everything we go through. And I've always probably been that way. And that's why most dealers, the ones that have planned and executed the plans quickest, are the ones that got through all of this with as little damage as possible.
Absolutely. One thing I learned about you back when we first met was that, you're always someone that is a couple of steps ahead of the curve. You're always I would put you into the progressive kind of character. You're always looking at improving things, and a real strategic sort of approach. And it's no surprise to me that you acted in the way, obviously with the help of your other stakeholders there. Yeah. And given that you have, your automotive experience is definitely from, a lot of it is outside of Australia. So I'm curious to know about looking at our two markets. It's always been accepted that the two cultures of our countries, you look at the South African culture, you look at the Australian culture, the two cultures of our countries have been not too dissimilar in a way. We're all adventurous and outdoors. We love, we're very much, we don't take ourselves too seriously generally. We work hard, we play hard at the same time. But from an automotive sense, what do you see like from a business sense and an industry sense, big differences between the two cultures and environments?
I think the biggest thing I probably had to get used to was the work ethic and the way Australia is. I think the people that have lived here their whole life don't realize just how good you have it in Australia. In South Africa, we had a 30% unemployment rate with a real 45% unemployment rate. So there's a lot of people without jobs when you're working in any environment, there's 10 people knocking on the door wanting to take your job. So the hardest thing for me in South Africa, you could push staff a little bit easier because we were all happy. You got a job and you do your best and you give everything you've got here. Sometimes people need a little nudge because there's a too hard basket in Australia. Some people in the automotive industry, it's easy to hop from one job to another job. So you sometimes, I think in the dealerships itself, it makes it a little bit difficult. You've got to find that fine balance between pushing your staff to the limits, encouraging them in a certain way, but to a point where they don't want to leave. So that was probably the biggest change for me. The first time we had a role that opened, I said, okay, well, let's run an ad quickly and we'll get 50 people that apply. And then it didn't happen. It's challenging to get people in that. On the customer side of that, I think there's a lot of similarities. The processes in the dealerships are very similar. In South Africa, obviously, because of the high crime rates and all the other things that come with being in that country, there's a lot more discipline with keys and processes and making sure everything's locked up, and that where Australia, we're a lot more trusting environment here. So, you don't have all those boxes that you've got to tick as much. But overall, I must say there's not too much difference. The culture of the staff here, I must say, is very nice because you don't have that added pressure of everything else that's going on around you in your country. It's a more happier environment for customers and staff.
Yeah, we do. We probably do suffer a little bit from complacency, I suppose, in a way, don't we, Aussies? So, like we're very laconic. She'll be right. It'll be all good.
Yeah, exactly.
It even works into our vernacular, doesn't it? It's just, well, I suppose it's what makes our country great at the same time.
Exactly,
in a way, doesn't it?
That's why I love the country like it is. It's we don't stress the little things so much, and we can let things go, and we'll do this and we'll do that. It's a much nicer environment to be in, and I must say I'm really glad I made the move.
Absolutely, we're glad you did too.
Thanks.
The scales of the businesses over there, though, are different to here in a way, aren't they? Some of the dealerships over there, size-wise, by comparison to our biggest of big metro operators, the scale of dealerships over there is exponentially larger than some of our biggest businesses.
Yeah, I think obviously the property price has a big impact versus what Australia is. In South Africa, property is really cheap, so you can buy a massive block of land and build a big dealership on it. The other trend that's happening in South Africa, I think it happened first in South Africa and it's starting to happen here, is most of the rural and smaller little dealerships have been eaten up by all the big groups in South Africa. That happened probably 10, 15 years ago. I can see in Australia we're starting to head that way now, and I think with the last 6 months we're going to see a few of the smaller ones either falling out or getting bought up by the bigger groups. So we're heading in that direction. We're a bit behind where South Africa is, because years ago we had some massive groups there that just bought everything that was available, and you just use their economy of scale to run their businesses. So that trend is happening here. But yeah, we with the price of per square meter, you've got to make sure that every return on every square meter you've got is a big difference to where in South Africa you can have a palatial dealership with a few cars in the showroom and it doesn't really bother you because everything's so cheap there.
Yeah, everything's cheap there too, isn't it? You look at the, wages are cheap, cost, the cost of living, it's like anything, isn't it? It's a flow on effect from, it's a flow on effect all the way down from the top to the bottom in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, the other side of it is in the government in South Africa, we don't have minimum wages, and you can pay people what you want to pay them, and you're going to have 50 people that apply for the role. So yeah, in Australia, that's something else I had to get used to, was there's a wage for this job, there's a wage for that job. So some of the roles here get paid a fortune compared to in South Africa, where you've got 500 people that'll do that same job for half the salary. It's market related. Whereas there's very few jobs that are market related. You've got to pay the staff what they've got to get paid, and that's the minimum you can go to.
Yeah. And obviously currently you're in your role, you're COO of the Tynan Motor Group. It's anyone that's been in the automotive industry for 5 minutes knows the legacy of the Tynan name. It's under, obviously, it's a second generational family owned business these days, located pretty much in paradise. A lot of people call where you call home paradise, don't they? It's right in the Shire, the southern side of Sydney. Yep. What makes the Tynan Motor Group great, in your opinion?
I think what I've liked, the same as one of the groups I worked with in South Africa, is the family environment. You're not just a number in a massive group where you're a payroll number and you're that person. It's a family environment. We do a lot of community work. Madeline, that does all our marketing. We've got things we do for universities. We have charities, fundraising events, and all those kind of things. And it's a very much a family environment. And a lot of, we've been here since it's probably 65 years around there. The whole Shire knows who we are. They know the family. It's a very big family. They're a great family to work with as well. So it's I think that's what customers like. You can walk in one dealership and you can walk in another, exactly the same brand. You get a feeling when you walk into one place, and whether this is where I'm going to buy my car. You can walk into another place where it just doesn't feel right. We've got a lot of customers that come in here and they know the family. Our staff, most of our managers have worked here for 10 to 20 years plus. We don't have a high staff turnover. And I think that's what makes it nice. When customers come here, they come see the same faces all the time. It's the same family, the same name. It's a very different environment to working for one of the bigger groups where you're really just a number, and every time the customer comes in, there's someone different there, and there's not that same personal touch when they come in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one thing that I was actually going to touch on. That's one of the things from my perspective is that the group is famous for retention. It's people that it's got in management positions. A lot of them actually started with the company in junior positions, and
that's right.
They've as you say, they've been able to retain people for a longer period of time, I believe, because of it. It's just like investing in the community, isn't it? You invest in your people, and there's a long-term return on that investment. You invest in the community, then there's a long-term investment return on that investment as well.
Yeah, part of our strategy as well when we employ staff is in certain roles we're actually looking at, can they do the next role up? So when we're employing them, we're already thinking, okay, can this candidate do the next job up? Some roles you obviously don't need, that's not a big issue, but there's some roles where you want to get somebody that comes in that may have management potential in the future. So you're employing someone for one role now, and we're looking long-term at what the next role is. Will they be able to qualify? Do they suit that kind of role? So that's what we try and do. And I think that's why we've lucky, like you said, we've had a lot of people that have come from apprenticeships right through to senior management. we've got our parts guys been here over 20 years. A lot of our other two GMs are both 17 to 20 years as well. They've all come through the ranks. They were salesmen when they started, and I think that's what we look for. We look for that attitude. You don't always have to have the skill. That you can teach anyone the skills, but if they got the right attitude, we know we can groom them into something in the future. And I think that's been even before I started. That's what I liked about the place, because they've got that culture, and we try always employ promote within before we look outside. We always do that, and being a big group, it helps a lot, because there's always somebody that we could promote up, and let's have all the staff know that there's always going to be opportunities for you in the future.
Yeah, it's a strong message to send, isn't it? And I've covered this off actually in previous podcasts. So if you've heard it all before, you've probably heard it before. But when I found him doing what we do, one of the questions that I always ask every single candidate that we work with is, who do you look up to as far as being a mentor for you? Who do you think has contributed professionally, to your career and has been that gold medal winner? And more often than not, the candidate will always come back to the person that showed them the most way back at the start of their career, where the learning curve is a lot steeper. And the reality is, I think it's about engagement, isn't it? An employee will stay engaged with you as a business if you're engaged with them and their growth. Yeah. The minute they feel that they can't grow anymore, as we've all experienced, that's when people move on. And
I think for us, we've got most roles, probably 90% of them, we've got like a 2-week internship that they do before they actually start the role. So with each role that we've had, we've got a 2-week plan. This day, this time, you're going to see that one. You're going to go there. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. A lot of times we show the guy where his telephone is, where his desk is, and we say, good luck, there's a few brochures, and off you go. And it's very daunting. And what you said is very true. When you start off, that first day even makes such an impact on how you're going to be going forward in the company. And we try to plan it for 2 whole weeks, take them everywhere, so that by the time they sit down with their job, they actually feel like they've been here for a month or 2 already, and then they can get going. So it's true what you say. It's very important, because if you just get dumped in a corner and off you go, you get self-starters that can do it, but you get others that just need that little bit of encouragement. And I mean, a simple thing like, I need to get a stapler. There's no one to help you. You don't even know where to get a stapler to start off with. Yeah. Who do you phone? And that's what we try and do as well. So it's very true.
Yeah, I read an interesting statistic the other day that said if someone starts employment with you and they move on in the first 6 months, the decision to move on has generally been made in the first 72 hours of employment.
It's probably correct.
It's just taken them a little while to, I suppose, either verify their feeling or find the next opportunity to go to. So it just goes to show that onboarding side of it is so key to successful long-term tenures with employees, isn't it? And as an industry, we've been very guilty of not handling that onboarding time well, as you say.
I think it's because you're so busy. And we've told managers as well. They've got to plan the time for these staff, because otherwise you get run off with the sales happening for the day, the customers coming in, and at the end of the day, your staff member goes home on his first day and he's spoken to 2 people and doesn't really know. It takes them longer to actually get going. Whereas if we plan it for those first 2 weeks, after 2 weeks he's ready to hit the ground running. Whereas if you leave him on his own, some of them will take maybe 2 months before they get going and get that momentum, and you might even have a casualty before the time's up and he hasn't even had a proper chance at it and just decides he doesn't want to work there. So we've got to make sure we do our onboarding, and I think that's what we do really well. And then it's the encouragement afterwards as well, and looking after the staff so that they can stay long term.
Yeah, it's an investment of time more than money, isn't it? When you're talking about onboarding, it's giving someone the time to settle in. It's the financial side of it, actually, by comparison, is really immaterial. Like it's a whether someone has business cards printed or a name badge done, or they're their logins for the computers and DMSs configured. They're all things that they should be autopilot things, but
Yeah.
having that set, okay, this is your 2-week program and this is your day to day, and we're partnering up with this process and this person. That's the important stuff, I feel, because that's the more you give there, the more you get back, I believe.
Yeah, we've got a saying, it's the Tynan way. And there's certain ways you answer the phones, there's certain ways you do certain things, and it's been in the Tynan family for years. And we teach them the Tynan way before they touch a customer or a telephone or anything. There's a few processes that we try and do a little bit differently to all other dealers. And that's what we focus on, is making sure that they understand what the Tynan way is, and then we can get them to go. And otherwise they learn their own habits and bring them in, and we have that break in our processes.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, when someone's learning an environment, because without formalized process, then they're learning from people that might have learned from people that might have learned from people. So it's like the old Chinese whispers, isn't it?
Exactly.
It might have been okay when you trained that person, 10 people ago, but it's by the time it gets to that end, by the time it gets to the person at the end of the chain, it's a completely different process than how it started.
Well, you never teach the person below you 100% of your job. You normally get to about 90% and you're at capacity. So you've had 90%, then 80%, then 70%. And by the time you're basically teaching them at the end just how to pick up a pen and answer a phone, and you don't know the rest.
Exactly. Yeah. But as you say, it's something that I think if you haven't got a set program in place for onboarding someone, then you should. It's before you bring someone else into your kingdom. Yeah, you should have a set process when you're onboarding, and it shouldn't be just the flight attendant approach. There's the emergency exits, there's the toilets. No, you're on your own.
They need a printed calendar, dates, times, everything, who they're going to see, and the managers and the people they're going to see have those as well. And they've got them in their diaries. They know, I've got to see Joe Soap, I've got to see him at 10 o'clock. I've got to take him through this process. That one I've got to see at 12 o'clock. I'm taking him through that process. And the first day, twice a month as well, we've got an induction program as well. We have our HR person taking all the new members of staff that we have through the whole Tynan process, the family, the history, all those kind of things. So there's a group onboarding that they do as well. It's not necessarily on their first day. We schedule those twice a month. So that way they just feel they know a bit about the history and everything as well. And then obviously their formal onboarding on exactly what they do each step of the way.
Absolutely. And you've got a real diversity to your franchises. You've got 15 new car franchises.
Yeah.
That's you must have a few business cards. how do you it's such a diversity, isn't it? How do you no 2 days must look the same for you, mate?
No, I think it's very difficult. It's good that we've got myself and the CEO have got a really good PA that sends all the bulletins to us, because you can appreciate it's fine getting a parts bulletin once in a while or anything, but when you've got 15 franchises all sending you parts bulletins, service bulletins, sales bulletins, it gets a bit much every day. So we've got a really efficient PA that puts all of those together for us and sends us the emails. The difficult part is we have to read every single one, because we can't just leave them and hope the managers are going to, you've got to understand every single one. So that's the time consuming part probably of the role. But the positives of that is, each franchise has something they do well. We've got premium brands, we've got entry level brands, we've got new Chinese brands, we've got all these different brands, different countries, and each one, there's something that they maybe do well. And that helps us a lot, because we haven't been indoctrinated by one franchise our whole life and do it that way. We'll pick up something good from one service franchise. That service franchise does this really well, and we'll apply that to all other franchises. So in a way, it's really nice for us. And that's what I like with previous roles that I've done. I've worked with so many. I've worked with every single franchise from exotics all the way through to the bottom. So you learn something from each one of them, and everyone's different, and you can take the best from some of the good ones, and the others you can work in between. So I think that's helped us a lot, especially with our service levels and things like that. Sometimes there's there's an amazing process that one manufacturer puts in that we think, hang on, that's really great. And we implement it across all the franchises. So it's, in a way, it's really nice. It's a lot of, you've got to think on your feet all the time and be on top of everything. And that's why we get all those bulletins sent to us, because if we start losing track, we've got all our measurements of every single thing, every franchise, every department that we get every day. We've got to be on top of everything, and it works well.
Yeah, it sounds. First thing that came to mind when you were telling me about the amalgamation of all your briefings and data and stuff is like, I had visions of the president of the United States briefing every day. What's going on? What do I need to be aware of? And it's probably a lot like that.
That's very similar. We've because we've been doing it for so long. We've got all these processes. So there's certain reports we get every day. I have a consolidated one that I send to the group every day, and I manually do that myself. For me, it just helps me to be on top of all the numbers, because a lot of time you get a report and eventually you stop looking at the detail. So there's a group consolidated one which I send to all the staff every single day. And that comes from maybe 7 or 8 different reports I get from different people. And that's my 20 minutes that I sit down and go through all the numbers, put it together into a graphical format with songs and dances, and guys, watch out for this, watch out here, service is doing well, parts is doing this, finance is doing that. It's a summary every day that I send out throughout the whole group. It is a bit of a challenge, but I think we've got the process pretty well sorted out. It'll be nice if there was something you just press a button and it all happened, but they come from so many sources. Yeah. There's always got to be that element of manual process in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And data is one of those things, isn't it? I think what's the saying that I love is that, in God we trust, everybody else bring data. It allows you to take the emotion out of things and obviously have a great awareness of where you're at. But you was talking about taking on the great attributes from each franchise. It's a lot like us in careers and even our lives, isn't it? Like you meet someone and they have a point of view and you go, wow, I haven't thought of it that way. I'll take that on board. But they also might have a perspective on something else that you go, well, actually that doesn't work with me. It's why we're all different, is because we've all had the opportunity to take those learnings from people along our careers. It's a great metaphor for life, I think, with learning from the 15 franchises.
That's right. No, there's some smart people out there, and sometimes you'll get something from your yardie or someone else that, me and our CEO talk to everybody all the time. If we go visit a site, we'll walk through the workshops, talk to the technicians. Have they got anything that they want to change that we could do better? Sometimes it's someone really that you wouldn't even think they've got this amazing idea. And we learn a lot from everybody. And it's franchises, the people. There's a few smart people out there that little light bulb will go on and they'll come up with something really amazing. And I think that's what makes the job so it doesn't ever get mundane, because, we always want to change. We'll never be in our happy place where everything just ticks along and carries on. We're always trying to reinvent ourselves, trying to work smarter, quicker, trying to make more sales, maybe do something with less staff or more efficiently, go more digital. There are so many things that are changing all the time. So, we get input from everybody. We have our ops meetings every single week with different departments, different branches. I go to all the different sites. So I spend a lot of time in meetings with them, but that's where we brainstorm all the time. And how can we improve this? What problems do we have? And that's what just keeps us going all the time. I couldn't see myself in one franchise just focus at there's not enough going on all the time and enough new stimulation.
Yeah, you would probably be bored, I would suggest, if you were just sitting in one building with one franchise.
I think
if I know you half as well as I think you do. But that's the thing, isn't it? A lot of the best ideas are the simplest ideas. Anecdotally, one of my old mentors said to me, he said, apparently there's a story that Colgate wasn't selling enough toothpaste. You might have heard this story before. There's a story that Colgate weren't selling as much toothpaste as what they would like, and the board was having a crisis meeting in their boardroom, which was attached to one of their production plants, and it was a new production plant, and the board halfway through the meeting, they broke the meeting and they said, let's go for a bit of a tour and have a look at the new plant. And one of the board members walked up to one of the production line workers and said, we've got a real problem with our toothpaste sales. What kind of ideas do you have that would allow us to sell more toothpaste? And the production line worker said, that's an easy problem to fix. Just make the hole bigger.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, you don't need to bring in an army of consultants to figure that one out. You know, the idea is right in front of you. I think the challenge to a lot of businesses is actually being open to listening to the feedback from your people, isn't it? Because
there's another one that I had. I don't know if you heard the one about NASA and their pen with their first moon mission that they had to go on, and they got all these engineers in to design a pen to draw on paper while they were up in space. And one of the staff members were there, and he said to the guys, "Why don't you just use a pencil?" And you know they were trying to come up with all this ink with pressurized pens and all this, and he said, "Why don't you just use a pencil?" And like you say, sometimes we'll have this massive problem, and that's what I like about brainstorming often with departments. You know, we've got a big PDI center as well, and every now and then a problem comes up, and you get the fitters coming in, and you say, "Guys, we have this issue, we have that issue," and they'll come up with the most simple idea, and you think, why did nobody even think of that? And it's good to get everybody's input all the time. You know, we often don't realize that the people around us could actually have a better solution than we have, and we always everyone comes to us for the answers when they get stuck and they don't know what to do. But sometimes the answers come out of the most simple ideas that you never even thought of, and from somebody that you wouldn't have expected it from either.
Yeah, especially the people that experience these things on a day-to-day basis often are the ones that have those solutions, aren't they? You know, so it's a because like a lot of people, I think when you hire someone, you know, when you say, you know, we've gone to the market and we've hired you because out of everyone that we've spoken to, we have fallen in love with you. And so, you know, if you think about everyone that works in your organization, that has happened for them at some point. You know, you've said that you're the one that we want, but in some environments, and not just limited to our industry, in some environments, that's, you know, you bring them on because they're the smartest, the best, but we, you know, at some point they switch off or we switch off from them. We don't listen to them, even though we've employed them for their brains and their smarts.
That's why we hire attitude, because you can be as smart as anything. Sometimes the people with the right attitude will come up with whole new ways. We've got, in our service department, we've employed people from hospitality that have never ever worked in service departments before, but they brought so much to the table on what they do in hotels and where they work. And some of our best staff have actually come out of the industry because, you know, we've been indoctrinated. We've got our automotive blinkers on, and we've been taught this is how you always do it. Some of those people that come from different industries have come up with amazing ideas, and we do things totally different. We've got a lot of processes that other people have never even thought of, and they've actually come from people that have never even worked in our industry.
Yeah. I know that to be true from experience. Yeah. What do you think the industry is in a great transition space, I believe, and I think we were saying before we pressed the record button, I think you're pretty much on the same wavelength there. You know, the industry is in a I wouldn't say a critical time. I think a very interesting time. You know, it's where do you see the industry evolving to over the next year or so?
I think, you know, there's a lot of people that say customers just going to buy cars online and all those kind of things. I'm not so sure that's the way it is. You know, I'm a type of person that likes to touch and feel a car and sort of have the experience and things. So I think having showrooms and things will always be there, but I probably think it might be in a different way. We won't have the same size, massive showrooms like we've had in the past. There might be smaller boutique type of showrooms. I'd like to see a shopping mall that's full of automotive showrooms and that kind of thing. When mommy goes to buy all the groceries and her clothing shopping, daddy runs off to his side, kids go to the toy section, and dad can go and have a look at cars and things like that. So I think there's a I'm seeing a trend where it seems to be a lot more interest in having boutique type showrooms in malls and things like that. The process is, the sales process is probably, we've changed it a little bit as well. There's been this way that you've got to slow down the customer and keep him for 2 hours in the showroom and all that.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore. We ask the customers, what do they want out of today? And we tailor it accordingly. So we plan all of that before we have our appointments. We used to have aftermarket people, used to have finance people. So the poor customer gets put from one person to the next person to the next person. He's got an hour's lunch. He's already annoyed because the kids are screaming in the back and he's got to get back to work. So we work a little bit differently. Our finance and aftermarket's one person. So, there's more earning potential. This came from a process where the finance people were earning less money. So we had to find a way to give them more money, and they're good at selling. So we combine that. So the salesman basically sees, the customer only sees a salesperson and then one other person. I still wouldn't mind in the future seeing a position where you see one person, where a salesperson can maybe do everything together, and this is your go-to guy if you want to buy a car. So maybe in the future there's things like that. We trying to look at how that could work. And one of the other things we're working on as well, which I think we've noticed with one of our bigger service centers, we do about 150 cars a day at one of our service centers. A lot of customers don't want to sit in a queue and talk to an advisor and all that kind of thing. We're working on a drop off and collect type of thing where you drop off your car and you come fetch it in the same place you dropped it off, and you get texts and emails and videos of your car and all that kind of thing. So I think service, that's I think where we're heading. We're planning our strategy that way, where I'd like to see you be able to drop off your car anywhere near your house. You stop your car off there and they know your car's there, gets picked up in the afternoon, you come fetch your car and it's serviced and everything's done. Some of the brands already have a drop off and pick up at home. So I think on the service side, that's the way forward. People don't want to have to take a morning off to go and drop a car off, get another lift and all that. And like I said, the sales side, I think, is more tailored towards what the customers want, like an Apple store type of thing where you walk in and they ask you, right, what are you expecting today? Right, I want to do this, I want to do this and do that. And I've got 20 minutes to do it in. That's, I think, where it's probably going. We've got to always be ahead of the times, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to reinvent ourselves before something happens. We want to be there ahead of the time. I think the guys that just sit there and wait for the customers to walk in the doors, that don't happen. The customer life cycle for us is very important. We've got all our touch points lined up from the first time you inquire to all your servicing till when you buy your next car. There's got to be more relationship type of thing. And I think the other thing that I think looks like there's a trend is the distribution model. I think a lot more manufacturers are starting to look towards that, and here and there I'm starting to see signs of some of the brands that we even deal with that I think they're heading in that direction. And I think that's possibly where it's going to go, because it saves the manufacturers money, but it also helps dealers as well financially. There's pros and cons towards it.
Yeah, it's an interesting time in that transition to the agency model, isn't it? That some of the manufacturers are looking at. But I think, from a high level, the last recent history in automotive, look back at the last 20 or 30 years, for example, we've really, as you said, we've really tried to push the customer into a process that we wanted them to go through, whether it's the sales process, service process, drop your car off at 7:30, Mr. Customer, and pick it up at 5:30, Mr. Customer. And, it's just, it became like on the sales side, yes, I know you've got to introduce me to the business manager, and I know you've got to introduce me to the aftermarket, and I know there's a back and forth with the sales manager that's behind the wall, and all of these things. And on the service side as well, but I think the thing that I've learned, and I think a lot of people have learned in the last little pocket of history, is that customers are saying to us that that's not what they want to do anymore.
That's right.
And we've got to listen to that. That's, if we want to be relevant as an industry, we've got to listen to that. And
that's what we've done. We did a lot of research and asked a lot of customers, and we still do before we make the appointments, what they'd like, and that data we're busy correlating And we've had some interesting information come out where we think we know what customers actually want. Just like you said, some guys just, they know the process. They want to come in. Half of them already know what car they want. All they want to do is talk price. So now we want to go and do our sales process. We want to take them through all these other things. We're trying to make it easier for the customers. And like you say, it's a process. We've done this for the last 50 years. We've done it this way, and it seems to have worked. But it's not working anymore. People want quick and easy now, and we're starting to ask that question, and more market research is coming out that we actually don't give the customers what they'd actually like.
Yeah, well, it's, we've been guilty till proven innocent with our, you think about the perception of the industry to the general public is, a guilty till proven innocent type of attitude towards the industry itself, hasn't it?
That's right.
It's always been a minority that's ruined it for the majority of us. But, I think for me, my feeling with looking at the agency model, I think that is going to help with our reputation. It's transparency. Any relationship built on transparency is a strong relationship. And, when a customer says, how come your car is 45,000 and the same car down the road is 46,500 and the one down the road is 43,000. How does that work? Then it becomes an element of that's very hard just for someone to explain to a customer on the reasons why that is.
That's very difficult. I think what we want to try and avoid is that confrontation. We don't want to get ourselves into those situations. That's what I like about, you go to Apple store like an agency model. You know what that thing costs. All that salesperson has to do is convince you that this is the one that you want to buy. There's no haggling about the price. It's difficult as much as we have that challenge with trying to negotiate a deal with a customer. Customer walks in with the same stress when he walks in. There's like, I wonder if I'm going to get a good deal or not. And it just takes that all away, and you start to lose focus on what you're actually trying to sell the customer is the value for that car when they come in and all they're doing is talking about a price. And that's why, for me, like one of the things like we were talking earlier on the differences in the automotive industry in South Africa versus Australia. In South Africa, every brand has a service plan included in the price of your car. So yeah. I've been a big driver of that over the last 3 or 4 years with all our franchises. Every opportunity I get, I'm pushing every manufacturer that I can in that direction because it takes away the haggling about the price of the service. Your CSI automatically goes up because the customer comes in, he doesn't pay, he gets his car and off he goes. That's the kind of things that we've got to try and eliminate out of every transaction. The sales transaction, the haggling of the price is always an issue. If that's gone, they look at the car, they focus on the features, advantages, and benefits. They're happy with their car, off they go. Then they go service their car, doesn't cost them anything. It's just a happy cycle all the time. And then it's easier to get them back into the next car because the whole process, they've never once, it's not that we fight with customers, but there's that confrontation, that uncomfortableness when we're going to now get down to the nuts and bolts of how much this car is going to cost. That's when a deal can turn sour, where everything can be perfect. And then this customer's been loyal to you for 10 years and you come with a price and he's been down the road to someone he's never been in. He's got a better price for a car. Now you've got to explain to him on demo bonuses and all the other things that come, why their car is cheaper. They don't care about that. And I think if we can eliminate that with the distribution model everywhere, service plans included with all the cars for 5 years, there's your retention sorted out. Customers keep coming back. Within 3 years, you get them back into their next car. You never give those customers opportunity to go out and get a different car. And I think slowly but surely the manufacturers are starting to realize we've got to get the customers into their new car before they even wanted to buy a new car. And that's the process we've got to get, because when they start looking, that's when they can end up going somewhere else.
Well, we've talked about Apple a couple of times, and I agree with you. I think, the way the industry model is heading is towards that. And if you think about it, Apple is a manufacturer. They're also they also build the software as well as the hardware. They're a retailer. They have their own retail outlets, but they probably move more material outside of their own network when you think about it. Like you could buy a phone at Apple, but you could also buy the phone at Kmart or Big W or Telstra or anywhere else. So I think the customer has learnt that irrespective if they buy a phone from Telstra they still go to Apple for a service. It's still, they're still and you walk past an Apple store on a Saturday at a shopping center, it's the busiest piece of real estate in the whole shopping center, isn't it?
They always full. You're right.
Absolutely. So, I think maybe the dealership of the future becomes a place where people come to spend time, not necessarily even just to buy a car. They might come and spend time in the cafe or, catch up with their friends. I suppose you look at some of the bigger luxury franchises, they've built these massive Taj Mahals that have these cafes and facilities to them. So
I think a lifestyle center type of environment, like you say, you've got one in Brisbane as well. You've got some of those. I think there's a big opportunity for that in the future, where you build a dealership, but you build other income streams from rental space, other office space, and all those kind of things. That I think is a very good model, and I think it's got some really good potential in the future. So either you build a big shopping mall, or you build a lifestyle center with a couple of extra spots for extra businesses in, and they can subsidize your rent.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I think when a model like the agency model comes in, I think combining roles like the salesperson, finance, aftermarket. I would even throw a dotted line. I would even suggest maybe even a service advisor might become the same person potentially. That contact, that point, it's not necessarily a salesperson. It's more like a relationship manager type of I suppose job description, isn't it? When it comes to how that customer interacts with the organization itself.
That's right.
We might be onto something here, Petrus. I'll put the patent pending on that one. Do you reckon we can get that over the line?
There's a lot of things that we can do. There's a lot of things I've been told can't happen, and they have happened. So we'll keep working on it. Go ask Elon Musk as well. People told him he had some dumb ideas along the line, and he's also done pretty well for himself. Eh?
Yeah. It's there's not too there's. I think there's someone said to me, there's only one chromosome difference between genius and psychopath, but as you say, we're in a very interesting time, and I think where we're heading, I think I'm excited to see, to be honest. I think the industry,
I think everything's getting forced. It's pushing dealers now to think a little bit outside the box. The old way of sitting there waiting for customers to come in, same process for service, same process for parts, all of that. Everything's changing now. People want faster, more efficient services. We've got to realize that cars are going to get serviced less and less. The more electric cars that are coming in, they don't need as many things in servicing. They might need tires. Some of them don't even need brakes anymore. So we've got to keep reinventing ourselves all the time, because if we don't, we're going to be like Nokia or one of those companies that will, one of those camera companies, Kodak, they just realize their whole business model is gone. So we've got to keep reinventing ourselves and looking at different streams all the time. So as one's decreasing, you're picking something up in another one.
Yeah. Gone are the days of, I think there's an old Henry Fordism, isn't there? That, I think it goes or something along the lines of, if I listened to my customers, they would just tell me they wanted faster horses. So I think gone are the days of that. I think we have to listen to our customers. That's the thing. They're telling us, the technology is telling us what the direction to go in, but our customers are just as loud with what they're saying to us.
Well, that's what we do with we do all our follow-up calls. Any comments from customers, we always record all of them, and once a month we sit down and go through all the comments, and that's where we get so much information, especially in the service side, where customers say, I wish you guys did this, or I wish you guys do that, or this really frustrated me. And those are the kind of things, if we don't listen to what the customers are saying, we're never going to change our business model. We're going to keep thinking we're doing things right. And it's like customer satisfaction. Some people say our customer satisfaction is low because our customers are just really difficult people. But that's their opinion of you. That's what they think. And it doesn't matter if you think your customers are difficult or something along those lines. You've got to listen to what they actually want. And that's why we're changing so many processes in our business, because we're starting to listen to our customers and we're starting to ask the questions. You know, Mr. Customer, how long do you want to be here? Do you want to spend time with a finance person? Do you want to test drive? Do you want this? Do you want that? All our processes in service and parts, we're starting to ask the customers what they actually want, and then we give them the service that they actually want, because everybody's different. I might have an idea of what my dream sales experience is like, and the younger generation of customers that come in, they don't want the same thing as me, and that's where we've got to start listening to them. You know, we've been in the industry for 30 years, and we know what customers want. Well, guess what? Things have changed. We haven't had to buy a car for the last 30 years. We've only been selling them. We haven't sat on the other side of the table and experienced the frustrations. And you know, we also send our staff sometimes to other dealerships and go and do mystery shop other places, because you just learn so much and you see, wow, that's a little bit different there, and this works, that doesn't work. We've got to keep seeing what customers want and just see what's out there as well. If you're not on top of all the changes happening, you're going to get surprised in a year or two's time.
Yep. You'll be like Kodak.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What would you like your legacy to be, Petrus? Like, you know, when it's all said and done and, you know, you're either at retirement age or won the lotto. I reckon if you won the lotto, you would still actually be working.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah. But what would you want your legacy to be? Like, what would you want them to say about you when you're not around anymore professionally?
I think the biggest thing for me is that I made a difference. You know, there's a few things I did in South Africa that no one had done before, and everyone followed suit, which was really good. And I want the same, that somewhere along the line in this whole process, some of these pie in the sky ideas that we have, where we've got a paperless service center, we've got a dip, maybe all the dealerships are in shopping malls and these kind of things, the innovative new ways of doing things. I'd like to leave that kind of legacy, that when I have gone one day, that I've had an impact on, you know, for me, one of the big things I want to do in this country in the next 2 years is to get all manufacturers to include services with the prices of cars. It's those small little things that I know I can make a change to the industry, and that's why I want to just keep focusing on that one day that they'll say, you know, he's the one that changed this, he's the one that changed that. You know, I'm not a person that just turns up at work and wants to get through the day and get to the other end. I'm always trying to be the first to do something new, reinvent something, try and do something a different way. So I think that's the kind of legacy I want to leave behind, that I made a huge difference. I don't want to be someone that was just a good worker and did what he needed to do. There must be a big footprint there and total different direction that we went. That's what I'd like to see at the end of all of this.
Well, I know if characteristics are anything to go by, mate, I'm pretty sure that you're well on the path to doing that, my friend, from what I know about you.
Thanks, mate.
And I appreciate your time today. I think that's probably a great note to wrap up on, mate. So I really appreciate your contribution. You're a friend that I met back in 2014, and you'll be a friend for a long time yet, I think, my friend. So you know, anything we can do to help you, more than happy to assist, and more strength to your arm.
Thanks, Cameron. Nice to see you again, and good to have a chat.
Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, you OEM people, service plans with new cars, make it happen, please.
Thanks, Cameron.
Good on you, mate. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.